of you got enrolled for Aadhaar? You raise your hands? That's pretty much everybody. Wonderful. How many people have actually authenticated themselves using their Aadhaar with biometric or otherwise? Not too many. This is what we're going to try and fix today, okay, with the help of you guys. So, about 5 years ago, in 2009, when Nandan asked me to set up the technology center for Aadhaar, I rented an apartment outside where I lived, and that became the Aadhaar, first office, because we hadn't all the infrastructure. And some of the people here were actually living in that apartment. Raj Mashwala here was living in that apartment. Sanjay Swami used to turn up, and Pramod, and Sanjay Jain is here somewhere, hopefully. Viral Shah, and so on and so forth. Vivek, of course, came in a little later, but there was a lot of excitement when we started building Aadhaar, but it was built like a startup, right? So it's not very different from what you guys are doing right now. And in the next couple of years, we built a very sophisticated system. You've probably heard of that. I'm not going to belabor that point. As Ashok mentioned, 700 million have been completed. No small feat. Every country in the world is amazed at the speed at which Aadhaar has gone. And the technology center which we created does enormous numbers, some 900 trillion biometric matches every day, the largest such system in the world by a long stretch, and also a very accurate system thanks to the team that we put together. It's about 100 times more accurate than the most accurate system in the world prior to that. Right? So all that has been covered in the past. You might have heard about that. Many of us left Aadhaar, transitioned it over to the able hands of Ashok Dalwai, and then, of course, the managed service provider also came and helped with that. But as the cliched phrase goes, Aadhaar did not leave us. We all continue to do different things around Aadhaar. And so we will try and talk to these experts here and talk about what they did, more towards getting practical about how can you go and build Aadhaar applications. So the focus is going to be about not what we did in the past, but how can you build applications. Of course, after Prime Minister Modi's strong endorsement of Aadhaar from the ramparts of the Red Fort itself, he talked about 300 districts using DBT, direct benefit transfer, using Aadhaar. He's talked about many schemes, Jan Dhan Yojana using Aadhaar, and so on. And apparently, I hear within the end of the year, he's asked every state government to link their databases to Aadhaar and do the Aadhaar seeding and so on. These are all very, very good signs that Aadhaar is back on, roaring again, and a lot of uses are going to be seen very shortly. Of course, the government has been planning things, schemes, NREGA, PDS, so on and so forth. But I think the time has come where private sector is not only interested, but it's also doing things, right? So let's focus on what is it that you guys can do about that. So very quickly, I'll introduce you the panelists. We have Raj Mashwala, one of the early entrepreneurs of the Silicon Valley. He is one of the co-founders of Tibco, which sold for a whopping $4.3 billion. And also, he started many other companies. I know personally Raj for many years. He started Concilium and many other companies. He's associated with Angel Prime here in Bangalore, and it also invests independently. And also, he supports many NGOs, including IIT Bombay, IIT Gandhinagar, and so on. And in fact, we also worked at an NGO in California called Indians for Collective Action in the Bay Area. Vivek is a very interesting guy. He's a serial entrepreneur. Right after his PhD, he went out and did a startup, hugely successful. I think the exit was upwards of $100 million. Yeah, there you go. And not just one, his second startup was also extremely successful. It was in the EDA chip design area, electronic design automation area. And when he joined us, we needed a biometrics expert, but he didn't know anything about biometrics. right? But when we looked at his credentials, we knew he could pick up pretty much everything. And today, he's probably one of the foremost experts in biometrics in the world, right? So, moving on to Sridhar. Sridhar Rao is the CEO of Novopay. Novopay is a Khosla Labs company. For full disclosure, I head Khosla Labs. Our earlier speaker, panelist, Vipin from NPCI, he had to rush back due to a personal emergency back to Mumbai, and so I called Sridhar to fill in. He's a professional with about 30 years of experience, 10 years in telecom, but most interestingly, he was the CEO of M-Pesa for India at Vodafone, prior to which he headed the telecom business for West Bengal, which he grew very rapidly. He's now the CEO of Novopay. So with that introduction, let me get started with some, Raj, you have been building devices, helping people build devices. You've been supporting Aadhaar from Silicon Valley, and I know you've got a magical new thing. Can you tell us about what are the kinds of devices you're working on, and maybe show us something?
Sure. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. So rather than talking about it, let's just do some gadgets, toys stuff. So one of the issues that we basically dealt with is Aadhaar being such a revolutionary tool. It's really hard to build an Aadhaar verification device right now. What used to happen was you get a USB device, you connect it to some PC, etc. There are just wires hanging out there, etc. So the first idea was, can we create an integrated device, a mobile phone, a mobile device that would actually be Aadhaar compliant and work seamless with Aadhaar. So what I have is 3 different devices, 2 phones and 1 tablet, all of them fully capable of doing Aadhaar verification, authentication, etc. So I'm going to actually use a tablet. It's a little larger so you can actually see it. What I'm going to do is put in, unfortunately, we don't have a really easy way to show you what I'm typing in. But what I'm going to first type in is my Aadhaar number. And I'm going to do what Mr. Dalwai already talked about was eKYC.
That was an iris scan.
And it actually goes through about 4 different channels. And if you can see this, what I got back was a photo. Sorry. Okay.
That's his eKYC data back from the Aadhaar data center.
Right.
Within
so it actually
a second.
went through. And you could see the speed at which it happens. Actually, let's make it a little more interesting. Vivek, can you do
yes.
with your
So I'll
I
put
call
on
it
my
Spider-Man glasses.
I put on my spider glasses. Okay.
Yeah, that may be.
So okay,
easier.
first let me just get my.
He's doing an iris scan through his goggles, through his Spider-Man glasses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, if you can turn around.
Okay. Wait a second.
And then you
Okay.
may propose.
You'll have to lift it a bit.
Can I do
Yeah.
this? Yeah. No, I can't do this. It's difficult. So let me just.
So there's an iris camera
An
built
iris
into
scan.
the tablet, and he's just looking at the iris camera. It's taking a snap through a illuminator and sending it to Aadhaar. There you go. So that's the magic of the kinds of devices that people are working on. When we first got enrollment kits in India, it used to cost 3 lakh rupees to buy an enrollment kit. Because of the standardization effort that came up with the team that put all these standards, it came down to what, less than 1 lakh? Similarly, innovators in California, and this is a technology that's coming from the Bay Area, they are putting together these amazing devices for Aadhaar that's going to drive this market. They're very low cost. What is sort of the cost on this,
so
Raj?
let's just talk about what it is, right? So the interesting part about iris is it just requires basically a simple camera. It's a 1.2 megapixel camera. That's all you need. So when we look at a phone like this, and the same thing exists in a tablet, there's just basically one additional what is called iris camera and one LED, just like basically a flash. The LED generates the infrared light under which your iris image is taken, and the rest of it is pretty simple. The total bill of material for basically adding this to any phone is about $3, 180 rupees. And frankly, and there are actually a whole bunch of phones, you will see probably over the next 12 months or so, a number of fairly large manufacturing or OEMs making it. As a matter of fact, the tablet I showed you is a production tablet which is made by one of the largest OEMs. Similarly, this is actually a Japanese phone, and that one is actually a retrofit, a Motorola phone with an Intel chip inside. Idea being, again, that the best way to get Aadhaar truly ubiquitous is to be in your pocket.
Great. Or live? You can't get enough of this, can you? Going to the data center.
It actually goes through about
Ooh.
4.
Okay, you're an imposter, Sanjay.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on, while he tries that, Vivek, tell us a little bit. I mean, we have.
There, he got it.
Awesome. Okay, so Vivek, we have entrepreneurs here. We have people who want to build apps on top of Aadhaar. Tell us a little bit about how easy it is to build apps, a little bit about the APIs that are available on authentication, and perhaps what are the new features that you have developed in the last, let's say, 6 months?
Okay, so I think the Aadhaar has a couple of key open APIs. The first API is the authentication API, and the other API is the KYC API. And those are the two major APIs that are available. These APIs are open. You can actually develop an application using these APIs using a staging. Anybody can actually develop an application. All you need to have is access to a device. And if you're doing a biometric, it doesn't need to be biometric. And you need to basically develop the application on using these APIs. And you can test the application on a staging system. And this is completely open to anybody. Anybody can develop. We have 500 developers today who work on our staging system and develop applications. And then once the application is developed, you need to actually deploy it in production. You need to actually sign an agreement with the UIDAI, and it's what's known as an AUA license or a KUA agreement is what you have to sign. And this is obviously available to. You can apply for a license, and it's actually quite easy. I don't know how many, about more than 100 entities. More than 100 entities today have AUA licenses. And it is quite easy to get an AUA license. So then after that, you can actually use the Aadhaar production data for your applications. And that's something that I recommend that everyone. So therefore, this KYC application is again something that you can use. You can use that data and build your application based on that. And in fact, Dr. Dalwai's talk earlier had talked about an event check-in. That's an example of, even though KYC originally comes from a regulatory kind of framework, but the applications of KYC, like, attending an event at a stadium, that's not something which you normally reflect as a regulatory thing, but the ease of use that have been created, that basically you can do a check-in in advance, and at the stadium, all you need to do is to just point your 2D barcode, and you can be let in because your photograph will be. And please note that application had no biometrics involved. Right. So anywhere, there was no special phone, there was nothing. And so the imagination of how you can use authentication and KYC is, that's where we want the innovativeness of all of you here to really develop the next generation of applications using Aadhaar.
Great. Actually, talking about eKYC, I was in California a few months ago, and Nitin was talking about Square. We were in discussion with Square, the company, and for some reason, we were talking about Aadhaar. We said, hey, we're doing some Aadhaar-based payments and so on and so forth. And they got totally interested, and we got sidetracked into talking about Aadhaar. And Square, by the way, is doing like, I think they're like almost the top 10, one of the top 10 payment processors in the United States now because of that swipe device. And they were so impressed with Aadhaar, they said, we only wish every country in the world had this because our system would fly if we did that. So this is coming from one of the top payment processors in the United States. So the fact that it's such a simple API, you don't have to create the database. The government has created a database of 700 million, and hopefully soon it'll be 1 billion plus, is something amazing, and we can all take advantage of this for our applications.
And I'd like to say a couple of more points which are important. That Aadhaar provides one factor of authentication. You can actually use it with a second factor of authentication completely from outside Aadhaar. And the other thing, you can also, Aadhaar also supports federated systems. You can actually do an Aadhaar authentication to enroll yourself into a different system. That is, establish a trust, and you're enrolled into a different system. So the ways in which you can use Aadhaar to build your own applications, there are really lots of different ways of doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So actually, now that we're talking about applications, there's one person here who has actually used it, deployed it in the field, and we want to hear from him how it's working. So Sridhar, if you can tell us, how are you using Aadhaar in the field?
Okay. For those and most who don't know what Novopay is, it's a new startup. We've been around for about 6 months. What we do is offer banking and payment solutions at retail points. Dr. Dalwai spoke about this guy Ram going to some post office in some village somewhere and getting his authentication done and getting his money out. We said, okay, there are X number of post offices, but there are 13 million retailers in this country. We are the largest number of retailers in the world. We said, why don't we go there? And of course, like Srikanth said, Novopay is a Khosla Labs incubated company. And a lot of the thoughts were, of course, from Srikanth's own experience and my experience with the telecom system. We therefore set about to go and provide banking solutions at retail points. We've been doing that now for the last 6 months. We are operating in about 10 markets. What we do is the retailer gets an Android phone app. Now, Android phones are available all over, and the prices are dropping every day. So it is becoming more and more convenient to have it on an Android app. There is a small biometric scanner cum printer. It's a 2-in-1 device where you can do a fingerprint scanning, and you get a print the way you get a credit card print out when you do a credit card swipe. So that thermal paper printer. This whole kit costs about, including the phone, it will be within about 18 to 20,000 rupees. The retailer has this kit, and when a customer comes with his Aadhaar card, he keys in the data into the app, takes the fingerprint scan, which is immediately authenticated the way these guys have shown you. It gets immediately authenticated, and the response comes back to the retailer whether this Aadhaar number matches that finger or not. Once that is confirmed, the guy can then key in the rest of the data. He scans out the Aadhaar card also because the bank needs it, and then submits it to the bank. We at Novopay provide the bank a portal view. So there is a real-time receipt of this data to the bank at the branch. So the branch officer there looks at it every day. He gets the entire details of the customer, including the authentication certification, and then accepts the account. The moment he accepts it, it is then sent to the bank CBS for actual account opening. So this whole process can take about 24 hours, and you're done with it. We've seen in our accounts in metros taking maybe 1 week to open a bank account, and can you imagine what happens in an interior town? This can be done in 24 hours wherever you are. So that's really what we are doing.
Yeah. As many of you know, 50% of Indians don't have bank accounts, right? And that's the reason why the Prime Minister has brought up this, this huge program, Jan Dhan Yojana. And, Sridhar often tells me, in the places where he's running his stores, you take a stone and randomly throw it, you'll hit a guy without a bank account. I mean, we are talking about so many people without bank accounts, and almost 60 to 70% of your transactions are account opening, beyond which you can do deposits, withdrawals, remittances, and so on.
And just to add, Srikanth, when you throw the stone, you don't hit a bank account, but when you throw the stone, you definitely are hitting an Aadhaar customer. That's a fact. It is people like us who don't have Aadhaar. But as you go down the pyramid, it's almost 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this whole product.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so now, let's, Vivek, I wanted to ask you a one-click payment with two-factor authentication.
So I think the first thing that you talked about is security, and I just want to just say one thing that, at Aadhaar, we can never be complacent about our security. I think it's something that that we take quite seriously, and that's something that's very important. But I think two-factor authentication is an ideal way to actually improve the security of financial payments. And as you said, both Aadhaar has been acknowledged as a factor of authentication, as well as the mobile, the mobile number is acknowledged as a factor of authentication. So then one could imagine in the future a device like the one that Raj just showed earlier today could actually be the foundation of actually creating a two-factor authentication system. But I mean, a single touch kind of two-factor authentication system. Now, there's a lots of things that need to happen, right? On the hardware side, you need to have a number of vendors actually create the ecosystem and actually have these phones available in large scales. On the software side, we're looking for people like you to actually build the applications with the best user experience, right? In the end, the build user experience, and that's the other part that needs to be there. And then there is there is the building the whole ecosystem to make people accept the payments, all of those things. So there are a number of things that are there, but you see all the technology pieces for this are beginning to fall in place. So, and I think that that's something that, it's something that we should aspire to, that we actually can use something of this form factor to create kind of a single touch two-factor authentication system, which would be a model for at least the rest of the world.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
So, going from there, Raj, I mean, you have been watching, I mean, you are sitting in Silicon Valley. You've been watching payment systems come, and in fact, the person from Yodlee, Nitin, talked about a lot of different kinds of systems. What is your, what are the trends and innovations you're seeing in the US payment system, and maybe some of them are applicable in this context?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I was just reflecting on this. Aadhaar, in some way, from an IT standpoint, is a Y2K over again. And I think I'm not saying that in a light fashion. If you think about Y2K, the largest software application company actually got built, SAP, because of Y2K. Because everybody had to go replace their ERP system in 1990s, and they had to pick a new one. Similarly, the Infosys and TCS and Wipros today basically are where they are because of that Y2K. The same thing is happening at an India level. Aadhaar is so much of your foundation that every application you can think of, access control, time and attendance, ERP systems, every enrollment systems, loyalty systems, all of them actually are basically opportunities for actually including Aadhaar and leveraging Aadhaar on top of it. So to me, this is really a dramatic IT revolution that is just happening in India.
Great. Well, we're completely out of time. Sanjay is, watching very closely, and it's gone to 0 right now. So I have a very exciting announcement to make. We have a Aadhaar hackathon. Can we put up the slide, please? Is it okay? Wonderful. We are doing a Aadhaar hackathon at Khosla Labs. This is sort of co-sponsored by NASSCOM, of course, UIDAI, the UID Authority of India, Angel Prime, as well as Khosla Labs. There's going to be 50 seats. We welcome all of you guys. 24 hours of hacking. There's going to be 3 prizes. We're still figuring out what the prizes will be. They'll be good. But we will show you how to integrate with Aadhaar in 1 hour. 1 hour of coding, and you are integrated. After that, it's your vision and your dream as to what you want to build in the next 24 hours for the prize. But this is going to be a really exciting hackathon. And I think I'm told that NASSCOM wants 4 hackathons. So Angel Prime is going to host the very next one. I don't know when it's coming up.
Probably a quarter later.
Okay. So this hackathon is on December 6th, it says. this first one. So we'd love to have as many of you as we can accommodate there, 50 seats. The next one is, and so on. We'll let the announcements come after that. But we're looking forward to that. And thank you very much, everybody. This has been amazing.
Thanks, Srikant. Thanks, Raj, Vivek, and Sridhar.